Welcome back to week 3 of our DBT skills module. This week, we are going to be covering an intro to mindfulness skills, as well as talk about our what mindfulness skills. So, before we jump in, we are going to do a brief mindfulness exercise, and I'm going to invite you to engage in some seated movement, primarily working our upper body. If it doesn't feel good for you to sit, you can do everything standing up. You could also probably modify a little bit on the floor if you wanted to spread out. And with movement, it's going to be doing what feels good in your body. So if I'm cueing you to do something and it doesn't feel great, feel free to take a moment to pause and break and not engage in that movement or find something else that maybe feels better in your body. So, always want to remind folks to listen to what feels good in their bodies. Okay, so we're going to take a few moments to just connect with your breath. Feels good. Maybe you can flutter your eyes closed. But if not, go ahead and breathe in through your nose. Let it go through your mouth. Two more like that. Breathe in through our nose, filling up those lungs and letting it go. One more, just like that. Breathing in, filling up. Exhale, let it go. You can continue doing your breath like that. Or we're going to engage in something what we call in yoga, ujjayi breath. So go ahead and fill up your lungs, inhaling through your nose. This time, sealing your lips closed, breathe out through your nose. Two more, just like that. Breathing in. Letting go. One more. Breathing in. Exhale through your nose. As we're going to engage in some brief seated movements, go ahead and keep engaging with that breath. So we're going to just start with taking a few head circles, loosening up that neck, nice and slow. When that feels good, go ahead and reverse, changing directions. One more. Awesome. Go ahead and find that neutral position. Going to go move on to our shoulders. Go ahead and raise your shoulders up to your ears, sliding them down your back, creating that circular motion. So bringing your shoulders up to your ears, sliding them back down, rolling them back down at your own pace. If you lost sight of that breath, go ahead and reconnect with your breath here. And go ahead and reverse that direction. Nice. Go ahead and shake it out. Come to a neutral spine here. Go ahead and sweep your arms up to the sky, dropping your shoulder blades down your back, gazing forward. This is called seated mountain pose. If you're standing up, it's just tall mountain pose. Go ahead and bring your arms down. Go ahead, sweep them up. Inhale, raising your arms up to the sky. Can't see it here. My palms are facing each other like this. Awesome. Go ahead and exhale slowly. Bring your arms down. Go ahead one more time, sweeping up to seated mountain pose. slowly come on down. One added thing you want, if you want to do here, if you want to forward fold, my desk is right in front of me, so I'm not going to do that, but feel free to curl yourself up, folding yourself down if that feels good, and then slowly rising back up to a seated position. Really nice. Next, you're going to take your hands and place them on your knees, and we're going to do a seated, what we call cat and cow pose in yoga. So inhale, you're going to extend your chest. Gaze is up to the sky, bringing your shoulder blades back, creating that arch. Beautiful in that chest. This is cow pose. Exhale, round the spine, chin to chest, seated cat pose. Awesome. Inhale, cow. So I'm going to move to the side this way too, so you can get this kind of perspective. This is the cow pose. And then rounding our shoulders for cat. So go ahead and move through a few rounds at your own pace. Again, linking your breath to movement. And if there's anything else that you want to do while you're taking these shapes, feel free. Maybe wiggle out your hips, shake out your arms, anything that feels good for you while you're going through your own variation of cat and cow. When that feels complete, we're going to meet at a neutral spine. So coming back together, we're going to do one more seated pose here. And we're just going to take what we call an easy, simple twist. So you're going to take that left hand and just bring it over to the right side of your body. And go ahead and twist to the side. Wonderful. Come back to center and go ahead and just do an easy twist to the other side, taking that right hand, placing it on the outside of that left thigh. Come back to center one more time each side. Inhale, go ahead and twist to the right. Getting back center. And again, one more time to the left. Exhale, come back to center. Okay, awesome. So shake out anything that feels like you need to. And just want to invite you to take a moment to reflect, to think about what you notice in your body. Is there anything that feels different from when you first started this video to now? What sensations are you experiencing and noticing? So take a moment to reflect on that. So I just want to briefly recap. Last week, we covered the biosocial theory as well as the wise mind skill, where we talked about the 3 states of mind. And so just to remind folks, the biosocial theory is what we call a transactional model, and it helps us explain why it's difficult for us to manage our emotions. So, on one side, we have that we're more biologically sensitive, and on the other side, an invalidating environment. And when those two have a interaction, that's what can make it really difficult for us to manage our emotions. So, if there's any other further questions, you might want to revisit the second video that further explains it, as well as the 3 states of mind: wise mind, emotion mind, and reason mind. There's a full explanation in that video. And of course, if you have any other questions about how to practice these, you can always revisit the workbook, as well as touch base with your individual therapist, who will be able to help troubleshoot with you. So to get into today, we're going to first start with an intro to mindfulness. What is mindfulness? Why the heck do we do this in DBT? So I'm going to share my screen for the workbook. Okay, so hopefully everyone now can see my screen. All right, so what we need to know when we are thinking about mindfulness: what is mindfulness? So even I want you to take a moment before we even look through what this workbook says and think about, what are your preconceived notions or assumptions or thoughts about what mindfulness is? Because there is so many things that we see maybe on social media, on TikTok, or influencers talking about being mindful and intentional. What does that actually mean? Just take a moment to think about what it is that you might think it means, and then we'll talk about what it is. So, what is mindfulness? It's intentionally living in the present moment. Being mindful is all about being connected to the here and the now. It's taking in what is happening in our environment as it's playing out. And it's also like taking note of what our internal experiences, again, in the moment. It's intentionally living in the present without judgment, right? Trying not to judge our experience or judge the world or judge our internal experience. It's intentionally living without attachment to the moment. So, again, taking it moment by moment, trying to be really fully present, fully engaged, and without trying to hold on to the moment, right? What are mindfulness skills? Mindfulness skills are specific behaviors you can practice. We're going to learn more in the next few skills, but these are specific, concrete things that you can go and do to practice mindfulness. And then the goals, like, why do we do this? I first want to say mindfulness is like such a foundation in DBT. And a lot of that is because being able to be mindful of our human experiences, our emotion, our thoughts, our behaviors, right? It all starts with being aware of those things in order to either continue on those with those behaviors if they're effective and working for us, and or for us to be able to make change. And a lot of us are learning skills so we can make change in our day to day. But it really starts with being aware. And throughout your DBT experience, we're going to be reviewing mindfulness because it is such a foundational part in being able to access and do other skills. Because a lot of times, if we're not aware of really what's going on, it's going to be hard for us to be skillful. So, really the goals are reducing suffering and increasing happiness, right? When we can start to be mindful, we can respond and react more intentionally, and that might overall reduce conflict in our life, suffering, pain, and ultimately maybe increase happiness. So, like being able to increase positive experiences, positive interactions with other people. We have increased control and of our mind, of our behaviors, of our emotions. Not to say that we have complete control, because sometimes things unexpectedly happen in our life or that are out of our control. However, we being able to tap into mindfulness helps us be able to control and manage how we respond when we're being more mindful. When we are being mindful, we get to experience reality as it is, as it's happening in the here, in the now. Okay. So, how to practice? So, with mindfulness, there are so many ways to practice mindfulness. And this is, I think, where a lot of times our judgments come in. Where I know for me, before I learned DBT mindfulness skills, I always thought mindfulness was just like using an app on my phone and listening to a meditation. And that is one way to be mindful. And that's listed here that we'll talk about. Like, we can meditate to be mindful, but there's so many other ways to practice mindfulness. It's not just meditation. So below are some examples of ways we can practice. Everyone responds to mindfulness practices differently. And so that's the thing. So being able to give it a try to figure out what ones are effective for you. Because sometimes meditation works really well for people. For me, not so much. I've learned that I am much more engaged and present when I'm doing more movement based things. So, yoga, walking, hiking. For me, tapping into movement is helpful for me to like be fully present in my brain and my body, within nature, if I'm outside. And that's okay, right? Like, sometimes some things are going to work for others and they're not going to work for everyone. So that's why I want to encourage and empower you all to try different things and try different ways that you can be mindful. So, like I said, movement is definitely one way that we can practice being mindful. And again, these are just some examples. You might feel really mindful when you're in a spin class, or when you're on a bike ride, or when you're at your basketball game, like when you're being active. You might be really able to dial into the here, the now, and we might notice that shift in our brain of the decreased worries about the future, right? Or I know when I'm in a yoga class, I'm not thinking about my laundry list of things that I need to do that day. That part of my brain gets shut off. So I am fully engaged in that present moment and not worrying about something that's happened in the past or worrying about something that is in the future. Meditation, like I mentioned, helps bring our mind to a specific focus, right? So maybe your focus, maybe the intention of the meditation is focusing on our breath. Maybe it's noticing body sensations. It can be done in a lot of several ways. But the most popular forms of meditation would be listening to like a guided meditation. You can find a lot of these on different apps. So there's a few that I listed here. Headspace is a really common one, the Calm app, Insight Timer. I definitely encourage you to download a few of them and try them out. Some people might really love Calm and not Headspace, and vice versa. So giving it a try to see if you really vibe with one of them. Another example of mindfulness and how to practice that could be through contemplative prayer. So, this could be offering an intention to a higher power or that is religiously or spiritually focused. So, again, this might really resonate with you if you do practice a religion or if you do go to a service, and maybe during that time, it's a really mindful and reflective experience for you. Okay. So take a moment to think, what are some examples of you practicing mindfulness that might not be listed above? So, again, these are just some general examples. There's a lot of other ways that we can practice being mindful, and curious if there's anything that comes up for you. Okay. Let's run through this story time here. So, there are many ways to practice mindfulness skills, and everyone has a different experience. For Claire, who uses she, her pronouns, she feels most present when she's engaging in art making. Claire loves creating different types of art through ceramics, watercolors, and cross stitching. She feels she is able to practice mindfulness through art making because she's able to let go of judgments. Able to be aware of the present moment and not latch on to the idea of the future, right? She's dialed in, she's just really in that moment. Claire feels at peace when she is expressing herself through art. Can you relate to Claire? What activities help you feel grounded and fully present? So take a moment to think about, yeah, what activities might really help you feel similarly to how Claire feels. Okay. All right. So here are some ways that you can practice through your home practice. So you can practice by yourself by taking a few minutes each day and pick one activity to do that helps you feel in the moment. You can practice with a peer by choosing an activity to do together, like going for a walk or going to the park. Pay attention to the details of the activity, such as the nature sounds during the walk, and then share your observations with each other afterward. You can practice with a parent by taking a moment with your parents to do something grounding together in your home. Maybe you listen to a guided meditation together or pick a song to listen to. Discuss your experiences and how being present in the moment can improve focus. So, those are some ideas. And then over the next week, you're going to practice trying those things out. So, share how you practice mindfulness with either yourself, a peer, or a parent. Was it effective? What did you notice? What was different about using mindfulness skills or being aware? Okay, so you'll be completing that. And then the second half here of today's skill is learning about the what skills. So there are two branches of mindfulness skills, the what and the how. We're going to cover the how in next week. Today, we're just going to focus on the what. So there are three subparts to the what skill. It's observe, describe, and participate. The what skills really help us to better understand like what mindfulness is. So with observe, it's all about noticing what your experience is internally as well as in the environment. So noticing your body sensations is an example of practicing the observe skill. Paying attention on purpose in the present moment. Practice wordless watching. Observe inside and outside of yourself. So you can even take a moment to practice this by picking an object in your room, in the environment that you're sitting in right now, and just pick one object and practice observing it. What do you notice? Think about maybe what colors, what textures you notice. What is the size and shape of this object? Okay. The next what skill is describe. So this is essentially putting words to the experience. So after you observe, it's being able to describe what it is that you observe. So labeling what you observe, as well as really practicing sticking to the facts. So trying to unglue your interpretations and opinions. Practicing maybe taking that object that you observed and practice describing it. So if without saying what it is, practice describing that object. You would want to stay away from describing the function of the object. If I was describing my cup here, I wouldn't say, oh, this is something I drink out of, right? Of course, you would get that, but like you might describe the shape of it, the size of it, the color of it, how heavy or light it is. That would be something that would be more objective and how you can describe that. So take a moment to maybe even write down like how you would describe the object that you were practicing observing. And lastly, participate. This is throwing yourself completely into activities of the current moment, acting intuitively from your wise mind and going with the flow. So this is being able to be like totally invested and throwing yourself into an experience, right? So like when you're out with friends, being fully engaged, right? Maybe you're not on your phone, you're present in the conversations. You're not worried about what you're going to say ahead of time. You're solely in the moment. Okay. So let's talk about how to practice. You're going to notice your surroundings. So, even tapping into using your five senses to mindfully observe your experience. So, one way to practice this would be doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise by using these prompts. A lot of you might be familiar with this. This is a really common mindfulness practice, and it can just be really helpful to get grounded in our environment and notice what's going on around us, right? A lot of times when we're feeling anxious or distressed, our world might start to feel really small and we lose sight of what's going on around us when we get really internally focused or get pulled into our minds here. So, this helps us take a step back and notice what's actually going on around us. So, this would be naming five things. So, five things in your environment that you can see, four things that you can feel or touch. An example like that could be like your you feel the floor on the ground, like your feet touching the floor. Maybe you feel the sensations of the fabric of your clothes. Maybe you're wearing a really comfy sweatshirt and notice like the softness of the inside of your sweatshirt. Label three things you can hear. So noticing any sounds around you. Are people talking? Do you hear music? Any other sounds that might be going on, like birds chirping in the background, things like that. Name two things you smell, so any smells that you're noticing, and then identify one thing that you can taste. And so, even if you're not currently eating in that moment, maybe there's an aftertaste to the coffee you had that morning. Maybe you are tasting gum or flavors from your breakfast. Anything that you might be able to taste and notice that could be after taste and after effects from something you ate earlier. Okay, so I'm practicing writing the things down that you observe. Put words to what you notice by writing them or saying them out loud. And then try something new. Throw yourself into a new activity. Disconnect by putting your phone away and really immersing yourself into the experience. So maybe next time you're at a club meeting at school, you put your phone on Do Not Disturb so you can really focus and be engaged in that meeting and interactions that you have with people. Okay. So here are some examples that we'll walk through. So we're going to start with observe. So here are some examples of I feel tightness in my chest right now. I am noticing that my drink is fruity and bubbly. I feel the cold sensation as it enters my mouth and as I swallow. The fidget toy is small and spins in a circular direction. Take a moment to practice observing in this moment. What are 3 things you notice about yourself and 3 things you notice about your environment? Go ahead and pause this video and go ahead and write those things down. Okay, next is describe. Examples of this is say the above observations out loud to help someone else understand your experience. So the things that you wrote out, that's describing, right? So you already practiced that in that last exercise. Write down the above observations on paper. Okay, so I had you do this in the last one too, but this would be basically describing. So in the last thing I prompted you to do was observe and describe. But if you didn't write it down, go ahead and pause this video and write down what you noticed. Practice using non-judgmental language and sticking to the facts of what you observe. Okay, and then participate. Mindfully go for a walk while noticing your surroundings. So whether you pause our video now and go for a quick walk, or when you're done watching this video, maybe you go for a walk if the weather and environment allows you to. Watching a TV show without distractions, right? I don't know how many times this happened to you. I know this has happened to me, right? Human here. But when I've watched a show, sometimes I have to pause and rewind because I missed what happened because I was texting a friend, right? And that's me. That's an example of not being mindful, not really paying attention to the show that I'm watching. And a way to practice that would be to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, maybe put it in another room, just totally disengage while I watch the show without distractions. Mindfully FaceTime with someone to be fully present in the conversation you are having, right? And so when you're FaceTiming, we're not also on TikTok or scrolling or texting people, but we're really engaged in that moment. So recall a time when you felt really present. What was it like to fully participate in the moment? Go ahead and share your reflections here. So again, go ahead and pause this video. Take some time to think about a time when you really felt present and what it was like for you in that moment. Okay, story time here. So Maria, who uses she, they pronouns, just joined the freshman soccer team. She often struggles in social situations and ruminates about if people are judging her. Soccer has been an activity where she practices letting go, being in the moment, and fully participating in the sport. By being present when playing soccer, she has been able to enjoy the present moment more, make more authentic connections, and let go of making mistakes. Have you had an experience like Maria's? When have there been times in your life that you could let go and go with the flow? If you haven't experienced being fully engaged, what barriers have you faced? What has gotten in the way of you being really connected and engaged within the present moment and the here and the now? So go ahead and take a few moments to jot those things down and reflect. Okay. All right. So home practice here. Here are some ways that you can practice this skill over the course of the next week. So by yourself, you could take a few minutes each day to sit quietly and focus on your breath. Count how many breaths you can notice. Challenge yourself to increase the count each day. You can practice this with a peer. Choose an activity to do together, like drawing or going for a walk. Pay attention to the details of the activity, such as the colors in the drawing or the sounds during the walk. Share your observations with each other afterward. You can then practice with a caregiver or a parent by taking a moment with your parent to sit quietly and focus on your breath. Notice how it feels to breathe in and out together. Discuss your experiences and how being present in the moment can improve focus. Okay, so then over the next week, you're going to be practicing the what skills as well as just practicing being more mindful and even thinking about maybe what your goal would be in practicing mindfulness. Maybe you do want to reduce your suffering. Maybe you do want to increase happiness. Maybe you want to improve focus. thinking about what you would gain from this experience. So you'll go ahead and jot these things down. All right. And that is all of our skills for today. So stay tuned for next week where we will do the how skills. All right. Take care.